Thank you everybody for coming and surprising us. Well, Samir, one more thing you couldn't say. Samir is also a detective story writer. He writes with a pen name that nobody knows. Yes, he's the best-selling author of Yatra books. Yes, he is, but he writes in Hindi.
Now he should translate that into Spanish.
He writes detective stories in Hindi and poetry in Catalan. Yeah, good balance. So he does it. Rare combination. And knowing Catalan in India it's a very rare thing, and he is the Catalan, resident Catalan we call him here. Anyway, thank you very much for coming, and we also have all the important writers who are present here. Thank you very much for coming. A very warm welcome. Yolanda Castano, as Oscar mentioned, Yolanda started writing very early, and I met her at a European Union translation program here in Delhi with Literature Across Frontier. That year they organized a poetry translation, kind of like in Max Muller they have poets translating poets, so they had the same kind of program there. I met her and we decided to talk about non-hegemonic languages, and well, in European Union they started calling minority languages. What is minority? That was a question. So for Europeans, Bengali can be a minority language, but in terms of number of speakers, we are not. In any of the Indian languages, for that matter, is not a minority language. So we started taking a term called non-hegemonic languages. And Galician is a very rich language with a rich tradition, like any other modern language. Galician and Portuguese are siblings as a language, and now they are separated by a political border and two different dictators in two different countries. They are separated, they were separated, but now they are trying to make a good bridge between two of the languages. And Yolanda is the face of our generation poetry in Galician language in Spain. Here you have, while she reads in Gallego, you can see the translations which are given there. In English, you can read the English translations. And Bangla is there, but Bangla, the print is not that good. I mean, some letters are not well set. So it happens while shifting from to a computer where there is no Unicode, it becomes the problematic to print. So those were my translation from that workshop. So this time we have 3 Bengali readers at least, but they can't read them in Bangla. Anyway, they can read the English translations. So I request you to all of you to when they read, you can follow the English translations as cinema subtitles, and I'll tell the name of the poems. Miguel Rodríguez Monteavaro he writes in Asturiano, which is not yet official. In India, the equivalent would be Rajasthani. Rajasthani is a language which has a master's degree. You can do even a doctoral thesis. You can write in Rajasthani. Sahitya Academy offers a Sahitya Academy award for Rajasthani, but it is not an official language. So Asturiano is like that, and Miguel teaches Asturiano at the University of Oviedo. So he teaches the equivalent should be Rajasthani here in India, and we have all kind of samples here. So landscape is exactly the opposite. Rajasthan is a desert.
It's in the north as well.
No, it is in northwest for us.
Northwest?
Yes.
And they are in the northwest.
They're in, yeah, well, yes. Northwest, you are in the northwest. Here the northwest is absolutely desert, and he comes from the opposite, rainy. Spain is normally a dry, sunny country, but Asturias is not like that. Asturias, Galicia is just the opposite. So it rains almost every day there, and he comes from that rainy area. So, well, I first would like to invite Miguel to start the session today. Please, Miguel, let us hear Asturiano.
So, wait. So good afternoon. I'm very grateful to be here. Thanks for having us. It's my first time in Delhi. It's my first time in India, and it was a very beautiful week in this country. I love it. I love it a lot. So yeah. Asturias. Asturias is a region of the north Spain. We have a very good forest. Is all the places are very green. All the days we have rain. All the days, in summer and in winter, all the days in the year. Yeah. And maybe our personality, our character is for that. It's about that. Yeah, rainy. Yeah, cloudy. And linguistically, Spain is a country with a very big diversity, and Asturias too. In Asturias, it's a very small region with only only 1 million of inhabitants. Only for you, it's nothing. And we have 3 languages in our region. We speak Spanish, we speak Asturian, and we speak Galician, the same language that Yolanda. And I come here from the border between Asturias and Galicia. We have a border, a political border, and my place where I was born is this border, and my mother tongue is Galician. Yeah, my mother tongue is Galician. So Yolanda and me, we speak each other in Galician. Yeah, my Galician is a bit different. It's very exotic Galician for the Galician people, because we have a lot of characteristics of Asturian. So we call this language, this variety of linguistic variety, Galician Asturian. Galician Asturian. It's Galician with a lot of characteristics of Asturian. And the biggest territory of Asturias, we speak the Asturian language. That is, between Galician and Catalan. Between Galician and Catalan, with a lot of things that remind us the French, also the Spanish. Well, I think if you can understand Spanish, you can understand Asturian. And if you can understand Catalan, you can understand Asturian. So, in Asturias, only is official, in this region, only is official the Spanish. We are fighting since 100 years. We are fighting for the legal status of the Asturian and Galician, and we are now in the moment that it seems it could be possible. I think it's possible, yeah. And if you want, I can read some of my poems. I can read my poems first, 2 of them in Asturian, and another 2, if you want, in my mother tongue, in my Galician Asturian tongue, if you want.
Tell something, just a couple of sentences about the Asturian literature. What is the tradition?
Yeah, Asturian literature. Yeah, if you want to ask me something, you can in the middle of the process. Yeah. So, Asturian literature. Since the medieval age, we have a literature, we have a lot of text, a lot of documents. We have a lot of papers in Asturian. And the Asturian language is spoken not also in Asturian, in Asturias, in more regions, in León, that is in the south of Asturias, and in Zamora, it is also in the south, yeah, and in a very small territory of the North Portugal, that is called Miranda del Douro, and we have a lot of texts historically, and now since the 70s, we have a very flourish literature, contemporary, with a lot of writers, a lot of young people writing in Asturias. Now we are in the process of translating us to English, to Spanish, to Catalan, to French. We are in the middle of our process of spending. We have very good writers like Joan Bello. Joan Bello is the most popular writer in Asturias. In Asturian, sorry. Then we have young poets like Jaime Martinez. Jaime is a poet who won in 2019 the National Young Award of Poetry in Spain. He's a very good poet. And we have a lot of names. And now we are doing a lot of things for our beliefs, because Asturias is a region that needs to believe in itself. Catalonia always believes in itself. Galicia also, the base country is the same, but Asturias is always like, I'm the younger brother, of Iberian Peninsula. And we have to believe in ourselves, like a very powerful culture. We have a lot of traditions. We have a lot of people that make a lot of things in cultural matters, and we are in the middle of the process. We are a bit later than Galicia or than Catalonia, but we are in that process. So if you want to ask me something, it's the moment. And I can read you something if you want.
No, but I may say something only, especially for our Indian audience, you know, that to us it comes as a surprise. As you say, you know, I am Spanish, I am Catalan, we know about Galicia, we know about Basque, but we hardly know about Asturias. That's I can say that's a reality, no? And it's very nice to hear that you are struggling to
but
make
maybe
your voice heard.
But maybe in the 60s or in the 70s, nobody in Spain knows about Galician literature or Catalan literature. So we are in the moment that Asturian literature needs to grow up. We are now in our 70s, you know, in our 70s.
I was just wondering because I can't believe that you wouldn't have very strong oral traditions, right? So there would be a lot of dialogic relationship between oral and written.
Yeah.
So your poetry is bound to be a little different from the others because you have your oral traditions interacting with the written and feeding into it. So you can't say it that you can't say that you haven't come into your own. Obviously you are into yourself when it's something unique that is happening.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, but we are. Yeah, we have a very strong tradition. We know that, but we have to share it with other people and with other countries and other languages and all the contemporary matters in the world. So that's our near future.
May I ask a small question? For example, a text like El Mio Cid, what is the first piece of literature on El Mio Cid in the Asturian language, or reference to this way?
Well, okay. Sorry. Yeah, the first literature text we have, it's in the 16th century. In the 16th century, we have some things before that we can tell them there are literature, but with the first text, the very real literature is in the 16th century, and it's of a writer that is Antón de Mari Reguera. He was a poet, and well, he wrote a lot of poetry things.
So you are yourself saying there are pieces, there are references to the pan-Hispanic framework within the Asturian language or its expression. It is taking from the other places and expressing it in Asturian. So it is where you were saying 16th century.
Yeah.
So it is already present there. So I'm sure that has somehow either in the oral or in the written tradition built up. There must be more references to this. And the Asturian literature must have enriched itself with the other writings from the other regions.
Yeah. Also, yeah, Asturias is a region very very closed with mountains, with a lot of physical problems, and now we have the moment. We have the possibilities of cross these mountains that closed us historically, and yeah.
Well, I've been to Oviedo for a week. Yeah, beautiful. But it's so different, this experience, because normally we are more used to Toledo, Granada, Sevilla, and the contrast is so striking.
Yeah.
Like in India maybe, but then more than that, because traveling from Connaught to Granada, suddenly the green and mountainous terrain changes suddenly. Yeah.
Yes.
From Madrid you can just forget it. But still I like it. But this contrast, does it resonate in the literature and poetry? Like you are in that contrast experience as compared to someone in Germany, because there is one black forest, then some other forest will come because it's so green.
Yeah. It's because it's the thing I said before, that maybe this contrast is about our personality too, our way to write. Yeah.
And also the history of Asturia, it's remained more or less intact, and even of course, part of Reconquista. So, but then Asturia has, I presume that a different historical flair or consciousness that people have. I don't know, because we all know Asturia through that Price Asturian, the famous, very
Prince of Asturias.
Prince of Asturia.
Yeah, it's like the British monarchy has Prince of Wales. That has nothing to do with Wales.
Yeah, but it's it's so interesting that it's so interesting because, well, Asturias, Asturian people always felt different than the other Spanish because obvious matters, obvious things, and maybe the reason of made the Prince of Asturias is that for connect. So these people are very different from us, we have to put there a prince of Spain. You know, maybe it's the connection.
Please, now read poetry. Let's hear Asturian.
Okay. I am reading two poems in Asturian itself.
Can you please tell the name of the poem in English translation?
Yeah. Yeah, the English translation I think is "Hey, Mom says come back." Yeah, this is a book of peripheral things. Yeah, because Asturias is a periphery of Spain, and my village is a periphery of Asturias. I am a peripheral of the peripheral people. And I'm gonna read two poems. The first one is the one that starts with "always I thought." Yeah. Siempre pensé que les historias que me contaba mi abuelo pa dormirme deben aparecer en algún libro. Aquel acordeonista armenio en el estaloba ya de Gagra prometióme volver a Venus y tocar dos gardenias juntos, todavía sabiendo que nunca lo diba cumplir. Les historias de mi abuelo nunca hieren sobre superhéroes, hieren sobre músicos de invierno, poetes antiguos y xente que andaba per aí. La acordeonista díxome: puedo tocar toles canciones del mundo y non sé yer partitures. Tampoco mi abuelo sabía escribir. And the other one is the next one of that book. It's about immigration. Well, you in India, you know a lot about migrations, about people moving around the country, around the world. Well, I am immigrant too. I was born in a village of, I don't know, 100 people. I went to the city, not a very big city, but to a city, like a lot of people. El día que piense en volver, no va a quedar nada de lo que quise. Morrió Luis de Rodella. Gerardo vendió la casa. Berto ya no está allí. Conchi va a ser vieja y Bolita va a faltar. Cuando me dé cuenta, no va a quedar nada que me una a aquello. Emigrar no tiene sentido. ¿Yeah?
¿Tú tienes traducciones? The day I decide to come back, there'll be nothing left of what I loved. Luis de Rodella is dead now. Gerardo has sold his house. Berto is no longer there. Conchi will be old and grandma will be around no more. When I come to realize every bond will have broken, emigrating makes no sense.
Venga, pues entonces mira. And the other two are from my next book. My next book is called The Light, Orion, like the constellation of Orion, and the New Light. And it's a new view of the myth of Orion. So I'm gonna read you only 2 poems. If you want, I can read you more, but for sharing the stage with my partner. Yeah, Orion, the classic Orion, he had a very difficult life. He was a giant. He loved a woman, but the father of the woman didn't want to. So this is the poem. This is in Galician Asturian, my mother tongue. It's a bit different. Faládeme das ambicióis. Faládeme del amor. Faládeme das lluitas. Faládeme das conquistas, dos paradigmas del tempo. Das candelas, das tardes que xa non vou botar máis xunta meu bolo del último falante de dálmata. Faládeme del brillo da llúa cando xela suave, dos pasos que vou dando cando vou almorzar, pero nunca, nunca me faledes de xusticia poética. Os reis del mundo, os padres das nosas namoradas, os machos omega que dirixen os movementos das esculturas, condenannos a todos homes a todos aquellos homes periféricos ás vidas sin luz, a cegueira ambiciosa. Si por amar temos que sentir culpa, conto hai que padecer por odiar?
He was the strongest man. He was the strongest man. Tell me of ambitions, of love, of struggles, of conquering things, of paradigms of time, of everything that burns, of the evenings I will no longer spend with my grandmother, of the last Dalmatian speaker, of the brightness of the moon when the freeze is soft, of my walk towards you, but never ever speak to me of poetic justice. The kings of the world, the fathers of us sweethearts, the male omegas who direct the movements of the sculptures, condemn all of us peripheral men to lives without light, to envious blindness. If we must feel guilt for loving, how much must we suffer for hatred?
But you missed in this poetry his rhythm of the body
Yeah.
movement.
Yeah, well, I understand the poetry with movements, with music, with the... Yeah, with the whole body, yeah, because I think a poet need to be more than a poet.
But I won't be able to do a poetic justice to this body that I have. So that's why.
So this is the last one. The last one of this book is the... is a bit longer. And it says like that. Tú mírasme de arriba en baixo cos ollos en agua e faltos de calor e pensas, pero que home máis forte, non chora e non diz nada. E eu teño que repetirche coas maos e cos dentes e coa miña postura tan pouco armónica que soy forte por fora pero frágil por dentro e que por eso, por lo que rompo cousas e desfago vidas e manco a xente e aos animales e que por eso polo que me comporto como un demo en fase de expansión. Polo menos tú podes chorar a grito pelado, polo menos tú. Podes darte cabezazos contra as paredes e pensar, ai, desgraciada de min, non como eu, un home, que pouco lle falta para ser cego, que non ten un espacio para deixarse render tan forte e grande que non colle ningúa chamada urxente, polo menos tú. Podes dar paseos interminables agarrándote el peto como desquiciada pola praza pola que paseabas antes de conocerme, pola marina, por el casco bello berrando polos recantos. Por qué? Porque eu tería que deixar al meu namorado, polo menos tú. Podes dar paseos interminables agarrándote el peto como desquiciada, pero agora a min, que me queda? Ser un San Marcos del futuro, un Xonás, Cristo Rei del Antroiro, un lóstrego, nos risas complacentes dos meus compadres, as luces vermellas e verdes dos portos han ir féndose mansamente, primeiro grises e despois opacas nun voo. Saber entrar xa na antesala da miña habitación, tú sigues mirándome de arriba en baixo como a un cuadro de cultura cobarde, como a un Goliat de capa caída, como un monte que se desprazou. Tú sigues mirándome de arriba en baixo cos ollos en agua e faltos de calor e pensas, era el home máis forte. E eu teño que repetirche cos ollos e cos dentes e coa miña postura tan pouco armónica que soy forte por fora, pero frágil por dentro e que é por eso polo que rompo vidas, é por eso polo que desfago cousas e é por eso por lo que me comporto como un demo en fase de expansión.
Since I have a Greek godlike body, so I can't do this acrobatic skills, so please excuse me for that. You look me up and down with eyes full of tears and lacking warmth, and you think, what a strong man. He doesn't cry, he doesn't say anything. And I have to tell you, with my hands, with my teeth, and with my inharmonious posture, that I am strong on the outside, but fragile on the inside. And that is why I break things and destroy lives and hurt people and animals. I disheartened with comments that offend, and that is why I behave like a demon in expansion phase. At least you can cry your eyes out. At least you can bang your head against the wall and think, oh, woe is me. Not like me, a man who is almost blind, with no room to surrender, too strong and big to fit on any urgent call. At least you can go for endless walks, clutching your chest like a maniac in the square you used to stroll through. before you met me by the coast. Through the old town, bowling your head off in the corners. Why? Why me? Why should I have to leave my lover? You look me up and down. But now, what's left for me? Would I be a Saint Mark of the future? A Jonas? Christ the King of Carnival? A flash of lightning in the smiles of my pals? The red and green lights of the ports will become meekly, first grey and then opaque. I will no longer know how to enter the hallway to my room. You keep looking me up and down like a cowardly painting, like a fallen Goliath, like a landslid mountain. You keep looking me up and down with eyes full of tears and lacking warmth, and you verbalize, he was the strongest man. And I have to repeat to you with my teeth and my hands and with my inharmonious posture, that is why I break things and destroy lives, and I hurt people and animals, and I dishearten with comments that offend, and that is why I behave like a demon in expansion phase. Thank you. Now I would like to request Yolanda to start talking about.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening. Thank you for having us here. We feel very proud and grateful and honored, and I'm very happy to be in Delhi. And thank you for hosting this event. I'm a good friend of Shubro, someone that I respect and admire as a poet himself as well. And thank you to the Cervantes Institute for making this possible. It's good to see friendly faces among the audience, and thank you to all of you for being here. I always feel very good in India. It's my fourth time in India, but from the very beginning, I mean, one of the things that shocked me the most was specifically and precisely this complicity that to be honest, I will never expect before coming for the first time. I mean, because of course it's a very faraway country, very different, and I never expect this complicity, this empathy that I can feel with this, with the situation that you mentioned in the beginning, the fact that you are such a diverse country, linguistically speaking. You have so many languages, and some of them have different legal status, different social status. And me, as a Galician poet, I feel something quite similar. I mean, of course, yes, our language at least is legal. I mean, it's official. Sorry, sorry. Official has this official status, but of course, even there are differences between the four official languages within the Spanish state. There are some differences, as you know. Some of them are more powerful, some others don't, and we have also these socio-linguistical problems. For example, in Galicia, for example, the prestigious language is still Spanish, of course, and for example, parents that speak to each other in Galician because they were born more to the countryside and they speak to each other in Galician. When they raise up their children, they want to educate them in Spanish because they think they will progress more, they will make more money. I mean, languages are linked to many kind of things, and some other languages within Spain are in a better position because they are more linked to the money, the progress, and maybe even the bourgeoisie, because the bourgeoisie has kept the languages. But in our case, in Galicia, is a language more connected to the rural people from the countryside, poor people, and that's why people think that Galician has no future, is a useless language, and that's a pity, of course. That is a very narrow-minded mentality, in my opinion, because if we speak about numbers, for example, of course, our language is spoken by 3 million people in Galician, but it can also connect us with the huge Portuguese-speaking world. Portuguese is the 6th, 7th, because we are Portuguese and Bengali, we are fighting between the 6th and 7th. I'm not Portuguese, but okay, I'm more connected with Portuguese. No, no, I mean, I'm more Portuguese than Bengali, my friend. Of course. So, of course, I mean. So, yeah, this Bengali and Portuguese are between the 6th and 7th position of the most spoken languages in the world. So, and Galician can connect us with this huge Lusophony, so-called Lusophony, so we can understand each other perfectly with Brazilian people from Macau in China, from Angola, Mozambique, Cape Verde, so many places, no? But speaking about minoritized, you said non-hegemonical languages, but also minoritized because your languages here in India are spoken by many people, of course millions of people, but everything that is not English or Hindi is like not so powerful. Yeah, not English. Okay. So yes. So when I come to India, I always feel understood. I felt that you were understanding our situation, and I felt that when Miguel was speaking about Asturian and the comparisons with Rajasthani, everybody understood. I mean, no problems to understand this. And sometimes it's even more problematic to make us understand in Spanish, in Spain, within the Spanish state. You know, it's like, but what is that, Galician? That, or even in the European context, to be honest, because I have been in forums in Europe when with an Estonian poet, for example, a Macedonian poet, and one single question was dedicated to each of us. And they asked the Macedonian poet about his topics, to the Estonian poet about her context or whatever. And my question was always connected with, that minority language. You know, and excuse me, but my language is spoken by 3 million people, while all these people are writing in a language that is spoken by 1 million people. I mean, Estonian is less than Estonian is a little bit less than 1 million, and then you have Macedonian spoken by 1 million, Icelandic by 300,000 people, Maltese 400,000 people. I'm speaking about state languages, not stateless languages like Galician. I mean, in Europe, most part of the languages are minority. If you, except from English, French, German, if you want, or something like that, the rest of languages are minority languages. So, but of course, concerning literature, concerning art, numbers are not powerful, in my opinion, and they can't say too much. No, they are not very meaningful. So I have felt always understood, and I have felt this empathy with no boundaries, mental boundaries in your mind when I come to India, when I saw all these beautiful, wonderful writers writing in Punjabi, Marathi, Kannada, and so many languages. So, well, in Galicia, it's true that it has taken a lot of time, but finally we are, the fact that Galician poetry, if now I can focus on my field, poetry, the fact that Galician poetry is in a wonderful moment, is enduring a flourishing age, we can say, is now accepted, let's say, and there, for example, the fruits are in these national awards, poetry national awards, or national awards for poetry. This is the highest award, the highest consideration that the government of Spain gives to a poetry book. And the last national awards for poetry have been in Galician, no? Like, for example, Olga Novo, also the younger Alba Cid, Pilar Pallares. And it's quite well accepted that nowadays Galician poetry is among the best poetics in the Spanish scene. And as my friend Shubro knows, Gamoneda, not me, Gamoneda says, Antonio Gamoneda, one of the major poets in Spain, says that Galician poetry is the best poetry among the Spanish state. So I cannot be blamed. Has an Asturian link, yes. But you remember this sentence that, of course, Gamoneda says that, yeah. Okay, so Galician poetry is a wonderful moment. It's a poetry really cutting edge, really literary ambitious, really, trying to go beyond. It's not like the Galician version of Spanish poetry. That is something very important. We belong to a different Galician, a different lyric tradition. We belong to a different literary tradition. That's why there are, for example, different degrees in the university. You can study Spanish language and literature, or you can study Galician language and literature. They are different authors and all that. Probably most part of you know that Galician comes from the 12th century, and the first lyric text come from the 13th century, and we had a flourishing tradition of troubadours writing and reciting poetry in the Middle Ages. Like the Occitan ones coming from the Provence, from the south of France. That was our golden age, okay, in the Middle Ages. And then we endured some so-called dark centuries where the Galician was not written because the Catholic kings were against Galician, of course. But then in the 19th century, again, we endured this so-called Renaissance. We call it Resurgimento, Renaissance of Galician literature. Thanks to three big names, and especially I will say only just one name, for you is enough to keep. The biggest name of Galician literature, in fact the foundational, the most important name of Galician literature. We have the big honor and pride of being a woman, a poetess from 19th century, Rosalía de Castro. She is such a big name, such an important name for us, that she's more than a writer. Everything is called after Rosalía de Castro in Galicia. Rosalía de Castro Street, Rosalía de Castro School, everything. So for us it's like a model, and we feel very proud of the fact that the main figure of Galician literature is a woman, something that doesn't happen in many national literatures, because for English literature is Shakespeare, for German Goethe, for Spanish, of course, Cervantes. Here we are. So we are very proud of this fact that we have a woman. And in fact, I must say that, I think I can say that in Galician poetry there is a matriarchat nowadays. Can't I?
Yes, you can. Of course.
I can, no? Like Chuspato, Olga Novo, Pilar Pallares, Alba Cid, Lupe Gómez, and so on. So, and it's not, of course, my opinion. I'm repeating words that I am hearing once again and again every time that someone.
Excepting Pepe Cacamo, I don't know any other male poet.
Wow, can you imagine? Yeah, we have anthologies of Galician literature, Galician poetry, where they are mostly female names. So it's and if you hear about Galician poetry, very probably you will hear female names. So this is a situation of Galician poetry, very diverse right now, very cutting edge, very brave, following their own traces and their own their own purposes and all that. And yeah, more or less, to provide a background, to provide a context. And now I will read some poems, right? Okay. Yeah, English translations. Because since I'm speaking about this situation of languages, and I will read mostly from my book called Second Tongue, that you can find in English for, by the way. You can buy it because it's published. It was published in 2020 in the UK in Shersman Books, so it's available. It's Second Tongue by Yolanda Castano. And so, since I was speaking about this situation, I will tell you something, and I think all of us will agree that poetry itself is a minoritized language. Poetry itself. A poesía é unha lingua minorizada. Comezaría polo espesor, a súa acidez, o seu pH. Camiña igual ca unha muller, entre o masacre do invisible e o campo de concentración da visibilidade. Ladra estilo e final, unha épica hospitalaria. No poema a linguaxe faise ouvidos xordos a si mesma. Nel as palabras amplían o seu círculo de amizades. Hai que masturbar o abecedario para que balbuza cousas aparentemente inconexas. Caixa de cambios da fala, acenos doutra orde. O sorriso do mosquito dentro da pedra de ámbar. Non se trata de que non comprendas árabe. Non entendes poesía. Xubriño, a ver si eso funciona.
Poetry is a minoritized language. I would start with its breadth, acidity, pH. It walks like a woman between the massacre of the unseen and the concentration camp of visibility. It bellows style and polish, a neighborly epic. In the poem, language falls on its own deaf ears. The words amplify the circle of friends. You need to frig the alphabet till it spouts unlikely links. The changing gears of chatter, the tell of another order, the mosquitoes smile in the amber. It's not that you don't get Arabic, you don't get poetry.
So very often because since I work as culture manager, like Marty, but yeah, another scale, okay, Marty. But I develop projects with international poets all the time, so I'm forced to speak foreign languages, of course. So this poem is called Listen and Repeat. Un páxaro, unha barba. Todo o ceo está en crequenas. Unha sede intransitiva. Falar nunha lingua allea parécese a poñer roupa prestada. Elga confunde os significados de país e paisaxe. Que clase de persoa serías noutro idioma? Ti fasme notar que ás veces este meu instrumento de corda vocal desafina. No patio de luces da linguaxe engánchame a prosodia no vestido. Contareiche algo sobre os meus problemas coa lingua. Hai cousas que non podo pronunciar. Como cando te vexo sentado e só vexo unha cadeira. Ceci ne pas une chaise. Unha cámara escura proxecta no hemisferio. Pronunciar se o poema é un exorcismo, un cambio de agregación, algún humor solidifica para abandonarnos. Así é a fonación, a entalpía. Pero tes toda a razón. O meu vocalismo deixa moito que desexar. Se deixo de mirar os teus dentes, non vou entender nada do que fales. O ceo faise pequeno, Elga sorrí en cursiva. E eu aprendo a diferenciar entre unha barba e un paxaro, máis alá de que levante o voo, se trato de collela entre as mans.
Listen and repeat. Un pájaro, una barba. The whole sky is hunched and intransitive thirst. Talking a foreign language is like wearing borrowed clothes. Elga confuses the words for land and landscape. Who would you be in another language? You show me my vocal cord is at times off-key. In the back garden of language, it's the prosody that snags my dress. I'll tell you something about the problems with language. There are things I just can't wrap my mouth around. Like when I see you sat and all I see is a seat. Ceci n'est pas une chaise. A camera obscura beams on the hemisphere. Pronounce. If the poem is an exorcism, a change of state, some humor takes shape to escape from us. That's phonation, enthalpy. But yes, you are absolutely right. My delivery leaves much to be desired. If I'm not watching your teeth, you won't understand a word you say. If I'm not watching your teeth, I won't understand a word you say. The sky shrinks. Elga smiles in italics. And I learn the difference between a beard and a bird. And not just what takes off. When I try to hold it in my hands.
Okay, and just the last one. Okay, this belongs to another book, a previous book that speaks about our images. What about the images that we project? It's called the history of transformation. The images that we project on others. What are our first impression, first hike? What are they telling about us, or what are they silencing about us, or what are they lying about us? What is our relationship with our own images? Historia da transformación. Foi primeiro un trastorno, unha lesiva abstinencia de nena, éramos pobres e non tiña nin aquilo, raquítica de min, depauperada antes de eu, amargor carente, unha parábola de complexos, unha síndrome, unha fantasma. Afiago a partes iguais, botalo en falla ou lamentalo, arrecife de sombra que rompe os meus colares. Foi primeiro unha branquia evasiva que non me quixo facer feliz, tocándome cos seus sopros, son a cara máis común do patio do colexio, a faciana eslamiada que nada, en nada sementa. Telo ou non o tes, renuncia, faite, traga iso. Corvos toldando nubes, unha condena de frío eterno, unha paciente galerna, unha privada privación. Nena de colexo de monxas que fun saen todas anoréxicas ou lesbianas, a letra entra con sangue nos cóbados, nas cabezas, nas conciencias ou nas conas. Pechei os ollos e desexei con todas as miñas forzas lograr dunha vez por todas converterme na que era. Pero a beleza corrompe, a beleza corrompe, arrecife de sombra que gasta os meus colares. Vence a madrugada e agora xa contén un presaxo. Pobre parviña, obsesionaxeste con cubrir con aspas en vez de co seu contido. Foi un lento e vertixinoso gromar de flores en inverno. Os ríos saltaban cara atrás e resolvíanse en fervenzas rosas, borboriños e caracois naceronme nos cabelos. O sorriso dos meus peitos deu combustible aos aeroplanos. A beleza corrompe, a beleza corrompe. A tersura do meu ventre escoltaba a primavera. Desbordaron as buguinas nas miñas mans tan miúdas. O meu afago máis alto beliscou o meu ventrículo e xa non souben que facer con tanta luz en tanta sombra. Dixéronme: a túa propia arma será o teu propio castigo. Cuspíronme na cara as miñas propias virtudes. Neste club non admiten a rapazas cos beizos pintados de vermello, un maremoto sucio, unha usura de perversión que non pode ter que ver coa miña máscara de pestanas. Os ratos subiron ao meu cuarto, enluxaron os caixóns da roupa branca, litros de ferralla, alcatrán, axexo, as agachadas, litros de control, litros de difamadores, kilos de suspicacias levantadas só coa tensión do arco das miñas cellas. Deberían maniatarte, adxudicarte unha estampa gris e borrarte os trazos con ácido. Renunciar a ser eu para ser unha escritora. Demonizaron o esguío e lanzal do meu pescozo e o xeito en que me nace o cabelo na parte baixa da caluga. Neste club non admiten a rapazas tan ben adubiadas. Desconfiamos do estío. A beleza corrompe. Mira ben si che compensa todo isto.
After this beautifully read poem,
I'm sorry it's not that easy to
it's
be
not
read.
right.
I know.
No one can read like you. That's a different thing. Of course, and the beautiful voice that she has, no, that's a different thing, different level altogether. I must just add one thing. When she said "unga fantasma," I thought about my students who were sitting there. That's the nightmare to deal with Spanish masculine and feminine. They most of the thing, because it's most of the people they say un fantasma in lugar de in the space of un fantasma they say una fantasma. In Spanish it's masculine, in Galician it's feminine.
Is feminine.
It's good
And
to learn Galician.
Let me say that, because you are not praising yourself, let me say that you are pronouncing amazingly the most difficult sound in Galician.
Is unga.
That is unga. That is very
But
difficult.
we have a letter in Bangla that's called unga. So
Okay,
that's all
because
right.
you know, in Spain it's very difficult to very easy to distinguish someone who is not Galician when they try to speak Galician, because they can't pronounce nga. We have this sound nga, ngu. Unga, it's only
We have that in
a
Bangla,
few
so don't
words,
worry.
so nobody can pronounce unga, but you do it perfectly because of Bengali.
Yeah,
Okay.
we have it. So
Okay,
I think
because
in
of
Malayalam
Bangla.
he says in Malayalam also.
Okay,
So it's there.
you
so
see, wow, amazing.
Don't worry. So we have
Complicities again, complicities.
for the pronunciation. Don't worry. We have all sorts of ranges and differences
I
to
see.
do that.
Beautiful.
No, when you were talking about you were talking about the different cultures of different languages. Like in India, we all probably accept it, except a few governors of these states and governments, and that every language has a different culture and different things. Every language is different. Food habit is different. Everything is different here. So you can study every single language and literature at the universities. Yeah, that's even
You don't have these boundaries.
No, we
It's
don't think
amazing.
about it.
Yeah, you have to learn a lot to teach to the
Delhi
Spanish.
is officially a quadrilingual city, so it has 4 official languages.
You see,
So it's all
Yeah,
right. So
we have to learn a lot from you Indians in the Spanish state, I think. Porosity, beautiful concept.
very typical characteristic of Indian languages and Indian language speakers.
You see.
So only one person here in Delhi would speak 3 languages.
at least.
That is a beautiful concept of living together. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll read this with the story of the transformation. It began as disorder, hurtful restraint. As a kid, we were poor and had less than nothing. Rickety indigence before I wanting grief. A parable of complexes, a syndrome of a ghost. It is as dire to miss as it lamented coral shadow shattering pearls. It began as a slippery gill whose passing breath left me destitute. The plainest face in the playground, I matter not a whit, and I'll neither grow nor sow. You have got it, or you don't renounce it, comply, swallow. A maelstrom raven sky of eternal cold judgment, a set westerly, a private privation, a nun's runt like all the rest, each one a lesbian or anorexic, the letter bet into the blood, the hands, the head, the conscience, the cunt. I shut my eyes and hoped beyond hope to become once and for all everything I was. But beauty corrupts. Beauty corrupts. Coral shadows, squandering pearls, day breaks conquering, there's boding in the gullet. You fooled, bedeviled with box ticking and not what they held inside. It was an idle, giddy burst of flowers in winter. The rivers leapt back to themselves in pink waterfalls. Butterflies and snails born from my hair. The smile of my breasts fueled breast-fueled airplanes. Beauty corrupts. Beauty corrupts. My supple belly guided by spring whelks spilled over my tiny hands. High praise pinched my heart, and I didn't know what to do with all that light in all that shadow. They said, your weapon will be your punishment. They spat my virtues in my face in this club. We don't have girls with scarlet lips. A vicious tide of filth gaining interest. That has nothing to do with my mascara. Then mice burrowed into my room and dirtied the linen drawers. Litters of scrap pitch lurking secretly, litters of control, litters of mud, slingers, kilos of suspicion raised. With just the arc of my eyebrows you should be hogtied. Stained grey and all trace erased with acid. Renounce who I am just to write. They skinned me alive for my long tapering neck, for the hair that springs from the nape of this club. We won't have girls who strut. We do not trust summer. Beauty corrupts. Make bloody sure it's worth it. I must tell this, the name of the translator of these poems. He's a resident Galician, well, a resident Brit in Galicia, Keith Payne, our good friend. He's a magnificent translator of, because her poetry is basically, it's a very structural game of rhythm, and he translated the rhythms perfectly well, and well, in English, dealing with Spanish verbs, and in Galician verbs and all the Iberian languages. This is basically a verbal structure, and he did it perfectly. Keith Payne.
Keith Payne, he's an Irish poet that happens to be living in Vigo, in Galicia. So he is becoming one of the main translators of poetry, Galician poetry, into English. But he's a poet himself, and that's always good for translating poetry, isn't it?
And he writes in Irish.
No, mainly in English. Yeah. Mm.
You know, you have traveled a long way from Rosalia de Castro. You know, it's a huge evolution from her kind of realism that she was expressing. This kind of
Well, it's the normal evolution, I guess, no? Because of course she wrote in the 19th century. Even I think she was very avant-garde for that moment. I mean, she really went far. I mean, she's considered a late romantic. Actually, she's one of the two main voices of Romantic Spanish literature, Spanish in
Iberian
general,
Peninsula.
Iberian
probably.
Peninsula, yeah. So we always the students always studied only basically mainly two names, Gustavo Adolfo Becker and Rosalía de Castro, even if she wrote in Galician. They were late romantic, but still she was brave enough as for introducing social nuances, social topics, and really brave. I would say proto-feminism as well. She was brave enough, and she developed a career as a professional writer. And after her, and because of her model, I think many of us dare to write in poetry. No? Of course.
She was very critical of Tagore.
Was she? I didn't know that.
The journal called Kritika,
Mm-hmm.
where she wrote a very, critical response
Mm-hmm.
to Tagore's romanticism or realism. And she said that this is not the realism that we want from modern writers.
Well, that means that she was brave enough as for putting her opinion and making
yes.
her opinion loud,
And
even if her
no,
opinion was like
Well,
not
this opinion
mainstream.
existed, yes. There is a dialectics. Both opinions existed in Spain at that time, and Rosalía de Castro was one of those who went against the Tagorean variety of
I
poetry
see.
writing. Yes.
Yeah, I'm just putting the stress on the fact that for having that critic attitude, you need to have a voice, and that was not so common for women at that time. So I would like to stress that idea.
I really want to congratulate you heartily for this poem in particular,
Thank
because I feel that something that you have done in this poem is absolutely extraordinary. You've turned beauty, notions of beauty, upside down. And in doing that, the deconstruction that you have done so poetically, and with, even if it seems like a long poem, it is done with a very concise, precise kind of format. And I honestly feel that this is the kind of realism, whether we call it postmodern, and I think it is postmodern in one sense, because it's really turning everything upside down, all the notions, stereotypical notions, and there is so much of anger which is classically
yes.
presented. It could have become a very dangerously melodramatic poem, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. This melodrama is part of that deconstruction that you're doing. Hearty congratulations.
Thank you very much. I appreciate very much your words. You're very generous with me, but it touches me, to tell the truth. It moves me. But it's true that I wouldn't like to forget the idea of beauty and also the idea of, I mean, art has some link with beauty. It can be a different beauty. Actually, I'm not very interested in canon beauty or traditional beauty, but other kind of beauty. But I wouldn't like to miss the idea of enjoying beauty itself in art. I love that in visual arts, in music, and everything. But also, for me, it's important to deconstruct it because for me, I see poetry as an alternative language. I would say like the alternative speech to power speech, to the language of the media, the power, the policies, the politics, and so, in my opinion, poetry must be always critic, must be uncomfortable for main speech, and it must be always suspicious of power language. And I think it's the only challenge that we have. I mean, to speak from a different point of view, from an alternative point of view. And I also combine, as you very sensitively felt, like high notions and popular or more down-to-earth notions, because some other value that is very, very important in the way I understand poetry is honesty. It's like some kind of honesty. I wouldn't like to mistake honesty or sincerity, if you want, with biographical confession. Okay, don't mistake both things, because I don't need to speak to tell how I wake up every morning and have my breakfast in order to be honest, sincere. I mean, it's something different. Sometimes you can be very honest speaking about your dreams, for example, or your thoughts, or even some lies, if you want, that are more eloquent for what you are than the prosaism of your real life, no? But if I think that you have to go deeper into yourself and speak from a authentic, sincere voice, and that's anything. That's all that you can ask to a poet. Please be honest with me. Don't lie to me. Don't wear a mask. Don't wear a disguise. No, and that's what I try.
Yeah, in fact, this I have read before I come here, because so I was a bit prepared, and I'm of the same opinion, and really liked it. And what I like about this poem is a beautiful fragmentation. So the title itself is "Story of the Transformation." So when you read the poem, it's still continuous, but you're feeling that you are moving constantly in a fragmented image, and then you get something and leave behind. So there's constantly the leftover. The objects comes and goes away. So, which is in a wild rhythm. That's which I really like this.
Thank you very much. Well, my style is quite fragmentary. Actually, that was one of the challenges for Keith Payne, I must say, because for English tradition, English lyric tradition, things go like more flowing, like something more narrative or something like that. And for him, it shocks him. The fact that it's so fragmentary, like fragments. Staccato, very good concept. Yeah, staccato. Sometimes it's like these filmmakers that show this scene and another image, another image, another image, and then you have the mosaic. It's somehow a mosaic with different things. And, yeah, something like that. So, but it's part of my style. Yes.
I think what is very significant is that there is basically, it's like clearing the ground. It's demolition and making space for something new.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. You do feel that there's something new that is called for, and that is what makes it positive. But
thank you very much.
Because demolition has to happen, and therefore questioning and suspicion, as you are saying. So it's a very, very deeply feminist poem.
I think so. Thank you very much. I'm happy that you felt it.
Maybe I should also say a few words, because I think both the poets, Miguel and Yolanda, both of them, they have brought their world to us. That is very important. And poetry is not separate from the world. I mean, however, even after demolition, you want to build a world, all right? And the most important thing about feminist poetry, at least, is, and I love nature poetry. It's part of eco-feminist poetry, is very central to my writing, at least. The honesty that she's talking about, it's very, very important, because now we are conscious enough to understand many lies of civilizations, and nothing fools us anymore. We can see everything very clearly. And for that matter, a transformed masculinity I'm talking in your sense, is something that is very much needed in poetry. And, talking honestly, for example, your first poem, when you are saying what you want to go back for, it's a very good, your poem hasn't really ended over there because it opens up so much to imagine. All those people you knew are gone. It's an era that is gone. It's a form of masculinized world that is gone. The journey is like forward. So we're going forward. And the construction of images, nostalgia that we have about the world that we have left behind, they have to become the content of our poetry. Our kind of poetry in our own time. It's not just fragmentation, it's really a possibility of a real change. Without that, it is not even possible to exist anymore, I think, unless we accept that we're going into something new. And that new will have poetry as its own language. I quite like that poem. Poetry is a language. Language in the sense, it's a whole world. It's a life world. And the fact that it is oppositional, the fact that it is daring, the fact that it is demanding honesty is the real challenge for everyone, all of us together. So in that sense, I kept on imagining a lot of things while you people were reading. That is wonderful. New imagination, new imagery, new images, possibilities of new way of saying the same thing maybe. So all of this has been quite nice. A great evening. Thank you very much.
Very beautiful words, very meaningful. Thank you very much. I think we both bring a world to our poetry and the poetry to the world, because we really want to be connected with world. We don't want the poetry separated from world. And I agree with you. We need this kind of new masculinities, deconstructed, or as Miguel wants to call them peripheric masculinities, like very coherent. I don't know if you want to say something more.
Non-hegemonic masculinity.
Non-hegemonic masculinities.
But interestingly, what I felt was that, while you were veering towards femininity, you were veering towards masculinity.
Maybe, yeah.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
But,
you're right.
but that's not new.
No, it's not new, but there are ways of doing it, right?
Yeah.
Which are new.
But has to be done.
Yeah.
Thank you. As somebody who's attempting to write Hindi poetry, and I have been for a while, and again, feminist poetry, there were two things that were striking for me in both your pieces. One was that there was extreme power exuding from empathy, which for me, personally, I feel, and I'd love to hear what you think, is one of the cardinal roles of poetry as well. In a world that is insistingly apathetic, to be able to infuse it with a little bit of empathy and questioning while being empathetic and honest, I think is extremely powerful. So I wanted to congratulate the two of you for that. And secondly, I think it's so important to keep the indigenous realities of our time alive. Again, in a world that is insistingly conformist, the fact that you have your own individual identities from your regions, in your language, I think is commendable. So just those 2 points. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you.
It's good to get feedback, isn't it?
Yeah, I have a very simple question to ask to both the poets. This is about the craft of poetry. Like, how do you compose and how do you kind of write? Is this impulsive? Like, how long does it take for you to, does it vary? Is it very meditative, And so I'd be very happy to hear that, how do you deal with that? Thank you.
For me, it's very impulsive. When I start a book, I don't stop until the moment I finish it. my last book, I didn't read anything of that book. The next book for my next publication, I think it was like a week or less than a week for me. Then I have to do a lot of corrections and a lot of work in the poems, but the structure of the book, only a week or something like that. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I am a little bit different than Miguel because my recent book that was published in June, it was the book before was 8 years before. I mean, it took me eight years. Took me some time, but it's true that Miguel works more after. I mean, you have this first manuscript very quickly, but then you work a lot and correct the poems. And I am practically the opposite. When I write the poems, I don't correct that much because it takes me so much to get to the idea, to get to the first manuscript. I'm very slow. So after I do this first version, let's say, I practically don't correct too much, but it takes me quite a long time. Well, recently I'm more, I don't know, more trained or something like that, and okay, I'm doing a decent rhythm because sometime before, for example, I remember a poem that it took me 10 months. So I was trying to find the perfect ending, and until the moment I found this perfect ending, the poem was like not finished, not progressing too much. So it takes me some time. But recently I'm improving my marks.
When you write, do you read it again? Do you recite it?
For me, the oral, the sound facet, the sound aspect is very important. So I prove always my poems reading them out loud. I'm somehow very conscious that I will read them later, because I perform a lot. I'm one of the most active poets traveling here and there, and I perform a lot. So I am very interested in that sound aspect of poetry, remembering that poetry was meant to be read out loud, not to be in the papers. And I'm very inspired by this facet of poetry, very interested. So I really enjoyed that facet.
And it struck me that you memorize your poems. You remember your poems.
I said I perform a lot, believe me.
Yeah. That's
I perform a lot, and I am slow publishing. So I have been reading this poem for the last, 10 years, perhaps.
No, I say this because you are here in a tradition where people do memorize a lot texts, here in India.
Beautiful.
Be it Sanskrit or Hindi, whatever. And I always felt that when you have your text inside you, the experience of the text changes also.
Because you can concentrate in performing, right? In these nuances, you're right. Is ideally, yeah.
That adds meaning to the text.
Yeah. You concentrate on the meaning and try to communicate. You're right. Beautiful.
So, all right. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming and being with us. So let's call it a day here, call it a night here. Thank you.
Thanks to the three of you.
Thanks. Thank you.